Morning, Peter. Morning, Dahrul.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning, Mister.
Daniel. Okay. What's 15 now? Okay. Luigi. So there are 16 students so far. I'll share the screen until others join us. Can you see the screen, guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Jana also joined us. Rashwan. Okay. So I'll just write down the names who joined us so far. I have the Harub. Sorry. Today is 24th. Attendance. Dahruk, Daniel, Gamal, Jana.
أيوة مستر.
I'm just taking your attendance. I'm just writing your names down.
تمام تمام.
Jana, Luigi, Maya, Luigi, Maya. What else? Maya, Minna, Mirna. Nada, Basant, Peter, Nada, Basant, Peter, and Rashwan, Samar, Shah, Rashwan, Samar, Shah, I think Shah Tamim, yes. Shah Tamim. Who else? Yaota, Yusuf, Matar, Yaota, Yusuf, Matar, and Omar. So we have about 16 students, as I said. You know, in the first and second terms, we didn't, this is the last end of the last week, sorry, of term 2. You know, you're not going to have an exam in term 2. The exam will be at the end of term 3. So we didn't have a novel in the first or second term, but we'll start A Tale of Two Cities, a novel, a British novel written by Charles Dickens. Sorry. Can anybody tell me what he or she knows about Charles Dickens? Charles Dickens. What do you know about Charles Dickens? Kiki joined us. Muhammad and Kiki. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Guys, do you know anything about Charles Dickens? Hello? Myrna, who else?
He wrote Christmas stories.
Okay, this is Nada. This is Nada or who?
Yes, it's
Okay.
me.
So as you can see, we have a list of the novels طبعا. Charles Dickens was or still is the greatest English novelist. He comes second after William Shakespeare, but Shakespeare, as you know, was not a novelist. He was a poet and a playwright. Worldwide, Charles Dickens comes second in the English language after William Shakespeare as a writer. Okay, but he is considered the greatest English novelist. The greatest English novelist. This is in front of you. This is a list of some of the novels he wrote. Maybe you studied some of his works. Did you study any of his works in middle school? Or?
I studied, I was in national section, so I took Oliver Twist, David Copperfield, and Tale of Two Cities.
This is Minna?
Yes.
Yeah, you studied The Tale of Two Cities in grade 9?
Yes.
Were you there in grade 9?
I was not in the school yet.
Okay. So you have a background about A Tale of Two Cities.
Yes.
Great. Who else has a background about this novel? Does anyone else know anything about the novel? This is good for you, Minna. We have two other people raising their hands. Basant. Basant, did you read it or you studied it?
I read it when my sister took it.
Lucinda. Yes.
Yes.
Great. What about Myrna?
Isn't it a movie?
4 movies. There are 4 editions. There are 4 movies. It was turned into movies 4 times. I think the last time was in 1985, I think, maybe. I put a link to one of the movies in SMS. You can watch the version you like, okay? It was made into a movie. Did you watch it?
Maybe like I watched a scene or something, but
yeah,
the whole movie.
Okay. So we are still 19. Nobody else wants to join. About 8 people haven't joined yet. Okay, so this is a list of the novels he wrote, or the most famous ones. David Copperfield, Great Expectations, Oliver Twist, Nicholas Nickleby, The Old Curiosity Shop, Hard Times. I studied Hard Times when I was in grade 12 myself. I studied Hard Times. Bleak House, Our Mutual Friend, Pickwick Papers, Dombey and Son, and so on, to the end of the list. Okay, our novel here is A Tale of Two Cities. A Tale of Two Cities. Do you know what these 2 cities are, guys?
Paris and London.
Paris and London. Thank you, Hania joined us. Paris and London. Just write her name down, Hania. Or London and Paris. Great. Okay. It's a historical novel, as you can see. It's a historical novel. Do you know what it is about? Which part of history does it discuss?
French Revolution.
The French Revolution, the era of the, or the epoch of the French Revolution. Can anybody tell me when the French Revolution was? When did it take place? The French Revolution. Mr. Abul Farh. Ahmed Abul Farh. Yes. Okay. Can anybody tell me when the French Revolution was? Wait, Abul Farh's name. Morning, Muhammad. Okay. When was the French Revolution, guys? It was around the same time of the American Revolution. It was in 1789. It was in 1789. Okay. It's A Tale of Two Cities. Muhammad, we are studying A Tale of Two Cities this year, a novel written by Charles Dickens, the greatest English novelist. We mentioned a list of his works here, and then we came to our novel, A Tale of Two Cities. The first thing to say about it, the 2 cities are Paris and London, because most of the events take place in both cities. A few events take part in the French countryside. Okay, it's a historical novel because it talks about the French Revolution in 1789. 1789. And the setting, it begins in the story. It talks about the backdrop of the revolution, the introduction or the events that led to the revolution. It begins in 1775, and the action is divided between London and Paris in the first two books. The novel is three books in one book. Okay, it was published in 1859, as we will see. Okay, and it was published in a weekly journal called, I think, All the Year Round. Every week he published a couple of chapters. The novel is divided into three books: book 1, book 2, and book 3. Book 1 is roughly 6 chapters up to page 44, the part I asked you to print. I hope you all have printed it, because it's easier to highlight any part, to read it when it is printed. The second book is about 24 chapters. Chapters are 2 or 3 pages. And the last book, book 3, is about 15 chapters. We'll finish book 1, which is about 44 pages this week, inshallah. Today, we are going to do this introduction and chapter 1, which is about just 2 pages. Tomorrow, we're going to do chapters 2 and 3, book 1, chapters book and 2 and 3. Wednesday, no, not Wednesday, Tuesday, we're going to do chapters 4 and 5. And Thursday, we're going to do chapter 6. And this way, we'll have finished book 1 and throw it behind our back and start term 2, inshallah, next week with book 2.
مستر الحاجات دي امتحان عليها الحاجات دي نمتحن عليها.
Who's asking? Jamal? Who's asking, guys?
لا
مش واضح.
Okay, Abdurrahman. No, Abdurrahman, I said we'll finish it this week, and this week belongs to term 2. But this means we're not going to have an exam on this part, okay? But you need to understand it very well, because it will be continuous. In the second and third term, you need to understand this part, study it, but not for the exam. Try to understand the events or the incidents, okay? And take it seriously, please. Because it's
Mister, I
an
have another question.
Yes, go ahead.
In the exam for term 3, will grammar be included or the novel?
Both. But not this part. Not this part of the novel. Okay?
مستر هو الجام ترم 3 هيبقى اونلاين ولا هنروح المدرسة؟
Excuse me?
امتحان ترم 3 هيبقى اونلاين ولا
ما اعرفش يا محمد، انت عارف لسه هيقرروا على يوم 20، ده مش واضح خالص. ما نعرفش هنروح المدرسة هنبقى اونلاين حسب الظروف الكورونا، وانت كده الكلام ده لسه بعدين يعني. جايز ما يبقاش في امتحان خالص، جايز يتلغى هو كمان، احنا ما نعرفش. هو الكلام اللي عند دلوقتي انت عارف ان ترم 2 ما فيش عليه امتحان ريتن، والدرجه بتاعته هتبقى زي ترم 3. ترم 3 هيتوزع على ترم 2، يعني هتجيب مثلا في امتحان الانجليش 36 out of 40، في ترم 3 هتبقى نفس الدرجه بتاعه ترم 2. انت هتاخد ال 60 بتاع الاتندنس والبارتيسيبيشن والكلام ده والبروجكت الترم ده اللي هم 60، ال 40 هيبقوا زي ترم 3. ده لو في امتحان ترم 3، احنا ما نعرفش، احنا ماشيين خطوه بخطوه. اوكي. Any other question? So this part will not be in the exam. This part we're going to study 44 pages this week, just book 1, the first part. But you need to understand it very well. Take it seriously, please, because it's a novel. Okay? Type. So the setting is in Paris, talking about the time, Paris and London, the place story, Paris and London, and the time it begins in 1775, about 14 years before the French Revolution, the events that led to the French Revolution. Okay, action divided between London and Paris in the first 2 books. Last book, book 3, is devoted to the reign of terror and how the revolutionists, you know, the French Revolution is one of the few revolutions that succeeded. And you know that it was, let's say, tainted by violence. The revolutionaries killed a large number of people. Remember the guillotine. Do you know what the guillotine is, guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Guys, I see that Myrna, Menna, Hania, Basant, and a few guys, Danielle, take part in the session. But the others just ask questions. please answer my questions. Please be لان هتجيلي participation. هشوف ميرنا ما بتشاركش وساكته خالص هديها زيرو والله اقسم بالله. يعني في ناس ما بتحضرش ولا بتشارك ولا بتجاوب اي سؤال. انت participated في ايه؟ انت attended ماشي على عيني وعلى راسي. وفي ناس attended وباجي اناديه ما بلاقيهوش ده غايب. انا والله سيريس في الموضوع ده. يعني المدرسه بتاكد على الموضوع ده. انت مش شاركش ولا بتجاوب اي سؤال. يعني لما اجي احط لك درجه البارتيسيبيشن هديك ايه يا حبيبي؟ هديك صفر. هدي ميرنا صفر عشان ما بتشاركش خالص. ميرنا واخدين بالكم ولا بتجاوب اي سؤال عليا. تمام؟ جاوب مش لازم تكون اجابتك صح. جاوب شارك في السيشن كده. اوكي I forgot my question. Can you remind me of the question?
Gelatin.
Yeah, the guillotine.
It was used to execute people. They cut
Okay.
off their heads, صح?
Yes, it was a device with something, a heavy metal, let's say, edge that was a heavy one, which was dropped on the neck of the maybe guilty people, and it separates their heads from their bodies. It was used to, let's say, have revenge from the high class which oppressed the poor people before the French Revolution. Okay, it's a very interesting story. You know, this book sold how many copies? Can you guess the number of copies this book sold? Can you give me
2
a
million.
number?
1 million?
1 million? More?
Billion?
It was published, as I said, in 1859. This means about 160 years ago.
200 million.
200 million. Who said this number?
Me, Hanya.
Hanya?
لا والله.
Yes,
Hanya.
exactly.
إن شاء
The
الله.
bestseller ever, the bestseller in history, as far as I know, the bestseller in history. Hunger Games, 3 parts, sold 50 million only. You know Hunger Games, a very famous title, right?
Yes.
Sold 50 million, the 3 parts, but this book only sold 200 million. It comes first. It comes first among all the novels, all the other books, all the other titles. This is the bestseller ever, as far as I know. I mean, I might be wrong, but you can Google it. Okay, 200 million copies. Okay, again, it's a historical novel. It tells the story of the French Revolution, or the events that led to the French Revolution, and how the revolutionaries got rid of their oppressors, or the high class which used to oppress them. The last book, as we said, is devoted to the reign of terror and how the revolutionaries killed all those who oppressed them in the past. The narrator of the novel is omniscient, somebody we don't know, but he or she knows everything about the characters and how they thought. You know, omniscient means knowing all, right? Allah is omniscient. Allah or God is omniscient, right? Guys,
Yes.
you know the meaning of the word, sure, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. At least say yes. That's good. That's good participation. Okay. List of characters. We have Jarvis Lorry. Jarvis Lorry. Again, remember the name Jarvis Lorry. A banker at Tellson's Bank. Tellson's Bank is in London. And this man is trusted friend of the Manettes. The Manettes, you know, when we have the before the family name, this means the family, the Manette family, or the Manettes. Again, Jarvis Lorry, a banker, and he's a trusted friend and advisor of the Manettes. He is a man of business, as we can see. Let's delete this character trait. This is a list of his character traits. He's a man of business and extremely loyal to everyone he was associated with, and his firm with rules. He follows the rules firmly. Okay, we have another person or another character, Jerry Cruncher. He's not a main character, but Jerry Cruncher, odd job man, maybe an office boy or something at Tellson's Bank, and part-time grave robber. He is a grave robber. You know what a grave robber does? Can anybody tell me?
He robs the grave.
He
He
robbed.
Allah.
took the bodies.
Okay, Muhammad Abul Farh, give Muhammad the mic, please, present. Okay, Muhammad, he robs them. How does he rob the graves? Muhammad?
I was talking.
He steals,
I don't know, by taking the bodies.
yes, and selling them to maybe medical students. You know, medical students, especially in the first year of the Faculty of Medicine, you need a body. They study anatomy, and some of them buy maybe some bones and you know this stuff. Okay, he used.
Don't they steal the belongings buried with the people instead?
Nobody buries anything nowadays. Maybe, but he used to steal the bodies. You'll see this in the novel later. He used to steal the bodies and sell them to medical students. Maybe, okay. So he is a grave digger or a grave robber. Okay, but he had another job at Tellson's Bank. Remember the name of the bank? Tellson's Bank in London. Okay, the third and the let's say the pivotal character in the story, or the central character, is Lucy Manette. Lucy Manette is Dr. Manette's daughter and Charles Darnay's wife. These are the three most important characters in the novel. Lucy and her dad, Dr. Manette, and her husband, Charles Darnay. The French name, Charles Darnay. The English, طبعا, Charles Darnay. Okay, but in French, as you know, Charles Darnay. Lucy is extremely caring and devoted. The story begins when Lucy is 17, a 17-year-old girl, someone who believed in her inner goodness. She's good. To the extent of penetrating it to anyone else. Anyone who met her feel that or falls in love with her. Brave enough to face any trouble without shattering. She was a brave person. And the next character is Miss Pross. Miss Pross, Lucy's servant, who cared for Lucy during Dr. Manette's imprisonment. So Dr. Manette, her father, was imprisoned for maybe 15 years in the Bastille. You know the Bastille, the famous prison in Paris, in which the poor people and the oppressed people were kept. Miss Pross is emotional, loyal to the Manettes, strong-headed. Let's welcome Mariam. Mariam, you are late. Mariam, are you there now? Okay, she's joining. The lady is strong-headed. At the end of the novel, she will kill someone for the sake of Lucy. Okay, and she is devoted. She is devoted. But so far, guys, we talked about 3 or 4 characters. Mr. Jarvis Lorry again. Mariam, can you hear me now? Okay, Jerry Cruncher, the grave robber, Lucy Manette, the central character, the story, Miss Pross, her, let's say, her nanny or her servant. And then we have Dr. Manette himself, Dr. Manette, Lucy's father, who was unjustly imprisoned for 18 years in Paris, 18 years, in number 105 North Tower. This is the number of the room or the cell in which he was kept. Whenever you asked him about his name, he said 105 North Tower. He was honest, sincere, sensitive, brave, and selfless. Then we have Charles Darnay, or Charles Darnay, Lucy's husband, who was sentenced to death because of the actions of his father and uncle. Charles Darnay belonged to a rich family. His uncle was the Marquis. You know, the Marquis was one of the ranks in the, or before the French Revolution. In Arabic, we say it Marquis, a Marquis, like a nobleman. And those people used to oppress the peasants and the poor people. So he's Lucy's husband. Sorry. Who was sentenced to death because of the actions of his father and uncle, the Marquis Saint
Evermond. Evermond en français. He loved justice, sorry. He hated oppression, and this is why he denounced his family and moved to live in London. Why? Because he wasn't satisfied with the, let's say, oppression practiced by his father and his uncle. He was hardworking and sincere. Then we have the Marquis Saint-Evremond, his uncle, cruel member of the French aristocracy, and Charles Darnay's uncle, the Marquis. Then we have Sidney Carton, an important character, drunken lawyer, he was always drunk, who takes Charles Darnay's place at the guillotine. He sacrifices his life because once he promises Lucy to, let's say, sacrifice himself for someone she loves. And he sacrificed himself to save Darnay for his wife Lucy from the guillotine, and he is killed himself by the guillotine. He is cynical, sincere, unassuming, and helpful. He didn't have much trust in himself. He thought that he fell in love with Lucy, but he knew that she wouldn't accept him. Then we have Mr. Stryver, a London trial lawyer. This is a lawyer in a London trial who was tried in this trial. It was Charles Darnay, the Frenchman, who employed Sidney Carton. So Sidney Carton was something like the assistant to Mr. Stryver. Ernest Defarge, this is a very important name. Monsieur Defarge, from my pronunciation, it's a French. Paris wine shop owner. He has a wine shop now, and former servant of Dr. Manette. He was the former servant of Dr. Manette, who is also a leader of the French Revolution. Monsieur Defarge is one of the leaders of the French Revolution. His wife, Madame Defarge, wife of Ernest Defarge, who records crimes against the people in her knitting. All day long, she's knitting something. What is she knitting? She's knitting the names of the, let's say, the oppressors, those who are to be punished after the revolution. Okay, she recorded the names, knitting them in the piece or pieces of cloth or clothes she was knitting. Her family was destroyed by the Marquis. This is why she wanted to have her revenge. Jack III, friend of the Defarges and a member of the French Revolution. Vengeance, this is another name. Vengeance, a female friend of Madame Defarge and a bloodthirsty member of the French Revolution. John Parsad, or Solomon Pross. As you can see, we heard this name before. Can you tell me the person with this name? Do you remember Miss Pross?
Yes, the servant at the Manette house.
Good. A servant, Lucy's servant. Okay. So Solomon is Miss Pross's brother, who lives away from her for a long time, but she recognizes him in a specific situation. He has two names, Jean Parsad, French name, and the British one, Solomon Pross. Miss Pross's long-lost brother who works for Roger Cly and helps Sidney Carton change places with Charles Darnay. Roger Cly, who's Roger Cly? English spy. So John Parsad or Solomon Pross, the same character, and Roger Cly were bad people, but Solomon was obliged to help change Sidney with Darnay in the prison, because as we said, Sidney sacrificed his life for the sake of Lucy. He saved her husband for her because he promised her to do so before. Roger Cly, English spy who testified against Charles Darnay in Darnay's London trial. So Darnay was tried in London at the beginning of the novel and then tried in Paris twice later. The first time he was acquitted, he was set free, and the second time he was sentenced to the guillotine. as you know, and Sidney Carton replaced him. Gabel, the caretaker of the Evremond estate, Monsieur Gabel, the caretaker of the Evremond estate. You know, the Evremond is Charles Darnay's family name, but Charles changed his family name and moved to live in London because, again, he renounced what his father and uncle had done. His imprisonment brings Charles Darnay back to Paris. Gaspard, he was hung for killing Darnay's uncle, the Marquis. The Marquis, one day, riding his carriage in one of the streets of Paris, ran over Gaspard's son and killed him. And all that he did, he was afraid that the horses were injured. And he threw a coin, a gold coin, on the ground for Gaspard. Gaspard followed the man and killed him to revenge his son's death. Okay, these are the characters. Let's move to this themes. We have here a list of 6 themes. I'll put this let's say this paper on SMS later. The first theme is the ever-present, possibility of resurrection. You know, resurrection when people come back to life. But there is always hope or possibility that somebody is resurrected. Resurrection. With A Tale of Two Cities, Dickens asserts his belief in the possibility of resurrection and transformation, both on a personal level and on a societal level. Yani a dead person, he believed that a dead person or a person who's almost dead, like Dr. Manette lost his memory in the prison. All that he remembered was the number of the room in which he was kept, 105 North Tower. But after his daughter visits him, after he was released, he comes back to life and he practices medicine as he used to do in the past. The narrative suggests that Sidney Carton's death secures a new peaceful life for Lucy, Charles, and even Carton himself. Because Carton himself was a useless guy. He was drunk. Maybe his sacrifice with his life for the sake of Lucy and her husband resurrected him in a way or another, made him a respected character. Okay? By delivering himself to the guillotine, Carton ascends to the plane of heroism. Yeah, we consider him a hero to sacrifice himself for the sake of the person he loves, becoming a Christ-like figure. Like as in the Christian doctrine, you know, Christ sacrificed himself for the sake of his people, whose death serves to save the lives of others. His own life thus gains meaning and value. Before he did so, he was valueless. His life was valueless, okay? Moreover, the final pages of the novel suggest that, like Christ, Carton will be resurrected. Carton is reborn in the hearts of those who died those he has died to save. See how you feel when somebody sacrifices his life or her life for your sake. Similarly, the text implies that the death of the old regime in France prepares the way for the beautiful and renewal Paris that Carton supposedly envisions from the guillotine. Although Carton spends most of the novel in a life of indolence and apathy, the supreme selflessness of his final act speaks to a human capacity for change. Although the novel dedicates much time to describing the atrocities, the oppression committed both by the aristocracy and by the outraged peasants after the revolution, it ultimately expresses the belief that this violence will give way to a new and better society. So there is always hope of resurrection. Dickens elaborates his theme with the character of Dr. Manette. Early on in the novel, Laurie holds an imaginary conversation with him in which he says that Manette has been recalled to life. And this is the title of book 1, guys. Recalled to Life is the title of book 1. Let me remind you again that the novel is divided into 3 books. Book 1, book 2, book 3. Book 1 is just 6 chapters. The title of book 1 is Recalled to Life. This means when Dr. Manette, who was in prison or was imprisoned for 18 years, he was like a dead person. He remembered nothing, okay? When he was released or was set free, he came back to life, okay? As if he were dead in the cell or in the jail. And when he was set free, he became back to life. He was resurrected. As this statement implies the doctor's 18-year imprisonment has constituted a death of sorts. Lucy's love enables Manette's spiritual renewal and her maternal cradling of him. She treated him like his mother. Maternal cradling on her breast reinforces this notion of rebirth. She used to hug him. He used to put his head, the father used to put his head on his daughter's breast like a baby who is sucking milk from his mom's breast. This means like as if he were still newly born, okay? Like a baby who's a stillborn or a newly born. The second theme is the necessity to sacrifice, of sacrifice. Can anybody read, guys? We still have about 3 minutes. Let's finish this theme before the break. Who can help me? Who can help this paragraph? Guys, I have 2 people. Okay, Rashwan. Suleiman.
أيوة مستر.
Morning.
Connected to the theme of the possibility of resurrection is the notion that sacrifice is necessary to achieve happiness. Dickens examines this second theme again on both a national and personal level. The revolutionaries proved that a new egalitarian French.
Egalitarian means there is equality, a place where there is égalité en français, égalité, l'égalité. One of the principles of the French Revolution. Egalitarian French.
Egalitarian French Republic can come about only with a heavy and terrible cost. Personal loves and loyalties must be sacrificed for the good of the nation. Also, when Darnay is arrested for the second time in the book, chapter 7, the guard who seizes him reminds Manette of the primacy of state interests over personal loyalties. Moreover, Madame Deforge gives her husband a similar lesson when she chastises
him for
his devotion to Manette.
She blames
an emotion that, in her opinion, only clouds his obligation to the revolutionary cause. Most important, Cartoon's transformation into a man of moral worth depends upon his sacrificing of his former self. In choosing to die for his friends, Cartoon not only enables their happiness but also ensures his spiritual rebirth.
Okay, thank you, Abdurrahman. We talked about the idea of sacrifice. I just want to, we still have a couple of seconds. Madame Defarge and Monsieur Defarge, her husband was loyal to Dr. Manette, and Dr. Manette's son-in-law, Darnay, was sentenced to death because his father and uncle were oppressors. So Monsieur Defarge wanted to help him, but Madame Defarge was very strict and she blamed her husband for such tendency. Okay, I'll end the session before it ends. See you after the break, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.